The Chicago Blackhawks released their training camp schedule this morning with things kicking off at Fifth Third Arena 1 week from today.
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Blackhawks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Per usual, quick reminder to hit the like button, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. I'm creeping up on 2,000 subscribers. Really want to hit that number before the regular season opens up in just a month's time. If you're tuning in through an audio platform, be sure to rate and review the podcast as well. And last but certainly not least, got to remind you that today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. Go and show some love by visiting FanDuel.com right now to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Day 2 of rookie camp, actually the last day of rookie camp before the team travels to St. Louis ahead of the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase, which opens up tomorrow. They're actually probably in the air while I'm recording this, and I'll get to all the key takeaways from day 2 of rookie camp during segment 2 here of today's episode. But first and foremost, what I got to open things up with is the Blackhawks announcing their training camp schedule finally here this morning, with things, as I mentioned during the intro, kicking off in just 1 week's time on Thursday, September 19th, down at Fifth Third Arena. And for the second consecutive year, I mean, tickets have always been free to Blackhawks training camp, but now that Connor Bedard is the new face of the franchise, and there's a little bit more excitement and buzz about this team and the future in particular. The Blackhawks are making fans request tickets because there are a limited amount to give out for this year's training camp. It's the second consecutive year that they're doing that, and the Blackhawks released links in order for you to purchase these free tickets. By the way, you can only purchase a maximum of 4 per single date. I believe I got the first week and a half of training camp, fortunately, but they come and go pretty fast. And quite honestly, I think at this point in time, they are sold out for the most part. So, I mean, you can go and find that link on any of the Blackhawks social media channels. You can visit Blackhawks.com in order to see if there's any still training camp tickets, free training camp tickets. Again, as a reminder, still lingering about out there. But a hot commodity with Connor Bedard and a lot of youngsters, and also new faces like Teuvo Teravainen, a familiar face, Tyler Bertuzzi, Alec Martinez, hopefully Laurent Brossoit will be able to join the group sometime sooner rather than later. But yeah, it's all kicking off in just 1 week's time, Blackhawks fans. We get our little first taste of unofficial Blackhawks hockey this weekend at the Tom Curver's Prospect Showcase. Training camp, yes, is just 1 week away, but their first preseason game is only 12 days away as well. So things are really starting to kick into gear here. But yeah, opening things up next Thursday at Fifth Third Arena, 10 a.m. is when practice will begin. And then general manager Kyle Davidson is set to have a media availability 1 hour later at 11. Camp back again down at Fifth Third Arena at 10 a.m. on Friday, Saturday. They'll have Sunday off, and then they'll resume on Monday, September 23rd. Practice at 10 a.m. once again. Same thing for Tuesday, September 24th at 10 a.m. And then Wednesday, September 25th, 13 days from today, is when the first preseason game is happening against the Detroit Red Wings. So the game group will practice at 10:30 a.m. at Fifth Third Arena. The non-game group will then take the ice at 11:45, and the preseason opener starts off at 7 p.m. at the United Center. The first little bit of game action for the Blackhawks, and I'm sure we'll see a pretty decent amount of their regular lineup in that one. They'll be back at practice the next day at Fifth Third Arena, 10 a.m. on Thursday, September 26th. Friday, September 27th is when they'll play their second preseason game, their first on the road. It's a little mini home and home against the Red Wings. The non-game group will take the ice first at Fifth Third Arena at 10 a.m. The game group will then practice at 11:30 a.m. before flying out to Detroit, with puck drop coming at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's actually a back-to-back that weekend for the Blackhawks. They'll be back in action on Saturday, September 28th at 10 a.m. at Fifth Third Arena. The non-game group will be out there just like the day before. 11:30, the game group will hit the ice, and then action begins for a second consecutive night at 6 p.m., this time, though, in St. Louis. So I'm sure we'll see some sort of split group traveling to Detroit. Some sort of other group will play in that game against St. Louis. And by the time we see these games go down, I feel like this is when we'll see some prospects sent back to their respected junior clubs a little bit, cutting down the roster at this point in time. Before practice returns to Fifth Third Arena on Monday, September 30th, Blackhawks have another preseason game on Tuesday, October 1st. At 7 p.m. against the Minnesota Wild in Minnesota. At 10:30 a.m., the game group will hit the ice at Fifth Third Arena, and then 11:45 will be the non-game group. And then 2 days of practice follow. That is, I'm sure the Blackhawks' final roster will really be starting to get thinned down at that point. Wednesday, October 2nd, practice will start at 11 a.m., by the way. Thursday, October 3rd is also at 11 a.m. And then Friday, October 4th, there will be practice at 10:30 a.m. ahead of the 7:30 p.m. puck drop at the United Center against the Wild. However, that practice on Friday, October 4th at 10:30 will be held at the United Center, kind of a true pre-game morning skate style to get players ready for what they're set to face the remainder of the year for the next 82 games moving forward, as that is the preseason finale. And then 2 final opportunities for practice: Saturday, October 5th at noon at Fifth Third Arena ahead of a 7 p.m. game against St. Louis. That will be the preseason finale. Another back-to-back there for the Blackhawks the following weekend to kind of put a bow on the preseason there. And then one final practice Monday, October 7th at 11 a.m. And that will lead to the team traveling out to Utah for the season opener just a couple of days later. So there you have it. There is the Blackhawks official 2024 training camp schedule. A couple of weeks long, only a couple of practices, though, before we see the first little bit of preseason action. So things are really about to start rolling here, Blackhawks fans, particularly starting tomorrow night in their opening game of the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. And as a reminder, I'm actually going to be having an episode come out following the opening game of the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. And I think I'm going to bless you guys with an episode on Friday morning, a crossover with Robin Leano from Locked On Utah Hockey, as they don't have an official team name yet, but having that crossover here this evening, that'll be out on Friday morning. And then either late Friday night or Saturday morning, I'll be having a recap of the first game of the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase, and then probably a preview of the second and final game for the Blackhawks. But again, there is the official training camp schedule that is set to begin in just 1 week's time. Coming up in just a moment here, Blackhawks fans, I'll get into takeaways, from day 2 of rookie camp and CHSN announcing its first distribution deal. But first, I got to talk to you all about FanDuel. I know you've all heard about FanDuel at this point in time now, right? But now FanDuel has something a little bit different for you all. Is now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet only $5, just $5, and you'll get a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. And then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. You won't just be stuck with the Bears, which, I'm knocking on wood, hopefully won't be the worst thing in the world for the first time in a while this year. A big comeback out of the Chicago Bears this week. I don't think I have the stones to quite take them against the Houston Texans on Sunday Night Football in Houston. However, as I mentioned yesterday, as my survivor pick this week, I'm going to be taking the Baltimore Ravens against the Las Vegas Raiders. If you want to tail me on that pick, make sure to check out FanDuel, the best place to bet on the NFL and Major League Baseball. And again, they're offering a free 3-week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV if you go and visit FanDuel.com right now and bet $5. It's that easy. All you got to do is put $5 down. So again, go and visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, just a quick reminder to please subscribe to the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. Really closing in on 2,000 subscribers right now, I believe. I'm about 250 away, and I know almost 50% of the viewers of this video right here, right now, aren't subscribed to the channel, so please help me out. It won't cost you anything, not even a single penny. It only takes 2 seconds to go and hit that button, and it really does help me out tremendously. And if you're someone who regularly listens through an audio platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please make sure to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube as well. Even if you're not regularly watching the YouTube channel, it won't cost you anything to go and hit that button, and it really, really is a tremendous help. And also a reminder to go and check out the Locked On NHL podcast now that hockey season is about to get into gear, because Locked On NHL is where the season never ends, providing national expertise with the local perspectives from all of our Locked On NHL hosts. You can go and find the link to Locked On NHL in the description, or you can simply search on YouTube or wherever you may be listening to your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, enough of that. Segment 2, let's get into some key takeaways from day 2 of rookie camp down at Fifth Third Arena. Tom Curver's prospect showcase kicking off tomorrow, and kind of as I mentioned yesterday, I anticipated that what we saw in the opening day of rookie camp was really going to be more notable than what we saw here today before the team flew out, just because it was such a short period of time of practice to get ahead of these scrimmages that they're going to be having on Friday and Saturday night. And I don't believe the forward lines or the defensive pairings changed on day 2 than what we saw from day 1. However, we did get to see a couple of power play units that I anticipate to see in the opening game of action tomorrow night. On the top power play unit for the Blackhawks prospects, we saw Frankie Nazar leading the way out there at the center position. No surprise. I believe he's out there on the left-hand side. Nick Lardis, I believe, is the man playing the right-hand side. And as I mentioned yesterday, a little disappointed to see Lardis skating on the third line instead of with Nazar and Colton Dach on the top line. However, I mentioned I fully expected him to get a role on the top power play unit. That's really where that's really his bread and butter. That's his type of game, offensive minded all the way, baby. So love to see him out there with Frank Nazar. The Blackhawks have Gavin Hayes in the bumper role, which is, I think, a really good spot for him. Had Ryan Green not been a college prospect, and had he been eligible for this tournament, I would have really liked to see him in that bumper spot in between Nazar and Lardis. But I do think that's a good spot for an offensive-minded guy like Gavin Hayes in particular, who has a really good shot. I believe potted 40 goals, or maybe he had 39 this past year, but either way, really prolific goal scorer each of his last 2 OHL seasons. Colton Dach, one of the veterans, if you will, veteran prospects on this roster, serving in the net front role as a power forward. I think that's a really good spot for him. And then Ethan Del Mastro cleaning things up as the quarterback at the point on the top power play unit, which I think is no surprise given that Artem Levshinov is not participating in this tournament. Again, as a reminder, due to a right foot injury. If you want to hear more on Levshinov and where I expect him to return and the impacts of him missing some time here and this Tom Curver's prospect showcase, make sure to check out yesterday's episode. Didn't really get much of an update or anything from Ice Hogs head coach Anders Sorensen here today. But yeah, I like to see Ethan Del Mastro out of the defensemen on this roster being the one to quarterback the top power play unit. And that was kind of a role that he unexpectedly took on with the Rockford Ice Hogs last year. We saw that same process with Alex Vlasic the year prior, and I think it's really worked wonders for Vlasic's puck skills and his puck management at the NHL level, and hoping it'll do the same for Ethan Del Mastro. And then on the second power play unit, Martin Misiak is there along with Ryder Rolston. AJ Spellacy is serving in the bumper role. A good opportunity there for him in rookie camp. Landon Slaggert, another power forward like Colton Dach, unsurprisingly, is in the net front role, and then Nolan Allen, kind of the only serviceable, not a jab thrown to any of the other defensemen on the roster, but not a surprise to see him quarterbacking the second power play unit either, even though that isn't necessarily his strength. Maybe if we, see Ethan Del Mastro called up at some point this year, maybe we see Nolan Allen be that next defensive-minded guy to get a little bit more offensive opportunities to kind of help him develop skills in those areas a little bit better. Wouldn't be surprised to see that whatsoever. But yeah, those are the power play units that we saw here on day 2 down at Fifth Third Arena. Would expect those to be the power play units when things open up tomorrow night. Some other notables from day 2 of rookie camp. This kid isn't a rookie any longer, but we did see Connor Bedard, unsurprisingly, skating by himself on the other practice rink at Fifth Third Arena. He has officially returned back to Chicago and, of course, finds himself on the ice practicing. Last man out there doing drills and shooting by himself out there after some of the veterans ahead of him had already wrapped things up in typical Connor Bedard workhorse-like fashion. And among the veterans that were spotted today at Fifth Third Arena were Tyler Bertuzzi and Pat Maroon, baby, getting some reps in ahead of training camp opening 1 week from today. And then a couple of player interviews, nothing really too notable from their quotes, but got to hear from Colton Dach, Drew Commesso, Landon Slaggert, and Anders Sorensen spoke once again today. Colton Dach was the first one to speak with the media. First thing that he mentioned was basically his feet and pace of his skating ability were really the things that he's worked on the most here this summer, which I think makes a lot of sense, and I really like to hear that. To me, for those who have been longtime listeners of the show, know that I believe that's really the area that's going to make or break Colton Dach, along with whether he's going to be able to stay healthy. That's really plagued him as well. But the foot speed, I like his goal scoring ability. I don't think he's going to be much of a playmaker. I like his size. I like his physicality. I think he's got to lean into that physicality a little bit more as he tries to reach that next level. But I really think if he can add some speed, he's got to get faster to be a consistent, everyday NHL type of player. That's really one area that's key for me, like I said, in making or breaking his future. So to hear him kind of recognize that and really work on that area is music to my ears. And speaking on the injuries that he's dealt with really every year since the Blackhawks have drafted him, he said that he feels as if he would have made it to the NHL by now and would have made his NHL debut at some point over the last couple of years had he not gotten injured. And quite honestly, I think that probably would have been true considering, he really found his stride around the midway point of last season, but unfortunately got hurt. Had he kept that type of player alive for another, couple of weeks or a month or so, the Blackhawks probably would have called him up to make that NHL debut. But, Dach's staying patient, but is really trying to gun for a roster spot this year. He's not someone who, which I've expressed a couple of times as well, is someone who I believe that lacks confidence, which maybe is a little detriment. Maybe I've also heard that maybe he's a little too confident in himself at some point in time. But a nice quote here from Colton Dach today. Quote, "I'm going in here and trying to earn a spot, take a job, and that's what I'm going to do." But I love to hear that, he also recognizes, and again, I think it's pretty obvious based on the moves the front office made this summer, nothing is going to be handed to anyone here in training camp. If you want a job, you're going to have to earn it 100% from top to bottom. And Colton Dach, an outsider looking in terms of his chances of making the actual roster. But if he goes and has a successful, weekend here in St. Louis and kind of carries that over and parlays that into a really good training camp and preseason, not going to say it's out of the picture 100%, but love to hear that he's kind of got that demeanor and sounds like a laser-like focus going into the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase here this weekend. Drew Commesso, one of my favorite prospects on in the Blackhawks pipelines for the last couple of years, also spoke with the media here today. And like Frank Nazar, who had been skating with Patrick Kane throughout the course of the summer, as he referenced during his media availability yesterday, Drew Commesso also has been working with fellow Boston, current Boston Bruin Northeasterner Jeremy Swayman, who went to college at Maine and has been a stud for the Bruins over the last couple of years, of course, and is now looking to be one of the higher paid goaltenders in the league, still figuring out, kind of what's going down with that deal as the start of the regular season is approaching here. But Swayman really proved himself last year, hence the Bruins letting go of Linus Ullmark, who's with the Ottawa Senators now. It's no longer a two-headed monster in Boston. The net is being passed over to Jeremy Swayman, and for Commesso to just be around a guy like that who's had a lot of success at the NHL level these last couple of years after being a highly regarded goaltender out of college, probably more regarded than Drew Commesso, but still kind of a player who was in similar shoes to Drew Commesso just a couple of years ago. I think that's a really good guy for Commesso to be around for a couple of different reasons. And I also like to hear Drew Commesso say that he feels like he rounded or closed out last year in full stride and really found his footing. And because of that, he feels even better and more confident about his game going into training camp this year. So really excited to hear that he's in a good state of mind. I've talked time and time again about the loads of awesome experiences that he's gotten up to this point now, and really excited to see how he's going to fare next year as the starter for the Rockford Ice Hogs. And also is staying patient, which I love to hear about Drew Commesso too, about whether he's thinking about when he's going to make that NHL debut and whether he's going to be the next starter of the Chicago Blackhawks. He said, quote, "When the time comes, I know I'll be ready. What matters is staying present." So he knows he's got to be patient. He's just got to keep doing the right things, putting the right foot after the left, day in and day out, getting better with each passing day. And, the rest is going to take care of itself. And eventually he's going to get that opportunity. And I really believe he's going to thrive and be the next goaltender of the Chicago Blackhawks. Last real thing of note that I found from day 2 of rookie camp down in Chicago this morning was Anders Sorensen's quote about Samuel Savoie after, fracturing his femur last year during the preseason. Missed a majority of the year in the QMJHL, was able to return late in the season though, but it sounds like he's back to full health. Sorensen said, quote, "It feels like he's back to where he was last year. I love his energy. He looks really good." Close quote. I know that's a lot of hockey talk right there, but love to hear that the energy has been up for Samuel Savoie. That's always going to be one of the sticking points for him, playing with a lot of energy, playing with a lot of passion and a lot of fire out there. So nice to hear that he's looking really good, and hopefully he is 100% healthy and will be able to get the go in the Blackhawks opening preseason game of action in just a couple of weeks' time. But there are all of the notable takeaways that I found from day 2 of rookie camp down at Fifth Third Arena. Coming up in just a moment, before I wrap things up, I'll get into CHSN, the new home of the Blackhawks, announcing its first distribution deal. Real quick, just wanted to say thank you again for making Locked On Blackhawks your very first listen here to start off your day. And a reminder, Mailbag Monday is just around the corner. It's going to be a beefy episode of Mailbag Monday as well. And I know with Blackhawks training camp kicking off next week, there are lots of you Blackhawks fans out there who have questions. Make sure to drop them down in the comment section below right now, or you can DM me on any of my social media channels. You can even email lockedonblackhawks@gmail.com, or also hit up the community tab on the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already while you're there. Segment 3, the Chicago Sports Network, the new home of not only the Blackhawks, but the Chicago Bulls and the Chicago White Sox as well, officially starting on October 1st, has officially announced its first distribution deal just a couple hours ago with none other than DirecTV. According to Jeff Agrest, who broke this news for the Chicago Sun-Times, DirecTV Stream, and Uverse TV are expected to see a seamless transition from NBC Sports Chicago to the new home of these 3 teams, as mentioned above, the Blackhawks, the Bulls, and the White Sox. CHSN is also expected to have the same channel location and to appear in the same 5-state footprint on DTV, which is Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And it's also worth noting that there are still more distribution deals expected to be announced ahead of the launch on October 1st. The problem with this is, one, DirecTV, cable, streaming, there's a whole lot of dispute going on in that world right here, right now. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that time is really starting to tick here for things to be announced. There's supposed to be more announcements coming for the Blackhawks broadcast team, for, the for the pre-games along with Pat Boyle, and during the intermission shows we don't have any like even official news around Charlie Roumeliotis, which I think is kind of weird. There's just a lot of unknowns, and as I referenced earlier, preseason is opening up in 13 days. I mean, I know we're only in the 12th day of September here, but the end of the month is starting to get in sight. So is the beginning of the NHL regular season. So, yeah, there's still a lot to figure out here, and these announcements better be sooner rather than later. The biggest thing here is, though, which also came via a post from Jeff Agrest, is that YouTube TV yesterday officially, and I actually missed this, and it sucks as a YouTube TV owner, someone who has not had cable for multiple years. I had a feeling this was coming, Blackhawks fans. I really did have a feeling. But YouTube TV yesterday sent an email to their subscribers saying that starting on Monday, September 30th, the day before October 1st, of course, NBC Sports Chicago's regional service will no longer be available on YouTube TV. And starting on October 1st, 2024, you will no longer be able to watch live content or access content in your library that may have been recorded from this channel. Now, I don't think this 100% officially means that Blackhawks hockey will not be on YouTube TV, but it sure isn't sounding good. And since this announcement from Jeff Agrest a couple of hours ago, there have been a lot of unhappy YouTube TV owners in the comment section of this post saying the Blackhawks better figure it out. But quite honestly, while I think it's a travesty and I'm a little bit worried about how I'm going to watch Blackhawks hockey, and it's rather annoying that it feels like there's going to be another platform that I'm going to have to end up paying for, would it surprise me? No, because greed is still very, very paramount, if not more paramount than ever in today's world. Hell, I mean, I don't get to watch the Chicago Cubs. They're not on YouTube TV. One of the biggest known sports teams in the entire world. They're not on YouTube TV. I haven't watched a Cubs game tragically in forever, and I'm really scared. I mean, it's not going to happen with me and the Blackhawks. I'm going to find a way to watch them one way or the other. Might have to be via my boys over at Stream East more than I like, but yeah, a little disappointing here. Again, though, there are expected to be more distribution announcements ahead of the launch coming on October 1st, but yeah, CHSN, the official new home of the Blackhawks, Bulls, and White Sox, has announced its first distribution deal with DirecTV. DirecTV Stream, and Uverse are expected to see, again, a seamless transition from NBC Sports Chicago to the new home of these three teams starting on October 1st. For the rest of us, still not exactly sure what that means. Whenever we find out for certain, I'll be sure to talk about it right here on Locked On Blackhawks. But that's going to wrap up today's episode, everyone. Again, thank you all again for joining me on the show. Be sure to go and hit that like button. Comment down below with your question. Mailbag Monday is right around the corner. And let me know if you're going to be hitting up the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase in St. Louis this week. If you want to follow me on X, go and follow at Jack Bushman 2. And make sure to check out my Strictly Blackhawks account at Talkin' Hockey as well for all the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until the next episode, it'll be at some point tomorrow morning, maybe around noon. It is going to be a crossover with Robin Liano from Locked On Utah Hockey. And then I will be having an episode coming out either Friday night or Saturday recapping the first game of the Tom Curvers Prospect Showcase. Until then, everyone stay safe. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every